The rivalry between the United States and Russia, often referred to as the Cold War, dates back to the aftermath of World War II and has its roots in ideological, political, and military conflicts. Before we start, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video, and we are going to give you historical videos like this. Here's a brief history of why these two nations became adversaries. 1. The end of World War II and ideological clash. 1945. During World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union, Russia was the dominant republic in the USSR, were allies against Nazi Germany. However, their cooperation was based on a common enemy rather than shared values. The US was a capitalist democracy, while the Soviet Union was a communist state. Once the war ended, their ideological differences became a major point of contention. 2. The Cold War begins. Late 1940s, 1950s. After World War II, the Soviet Union expanded its influence across Eastern Europe, setting up communist governments in countries like Poland, East Germany, and Hungary. The US saw this as the beginning of communist expansion and responded with the Truman Doctrine, which aimed to contain the spread of communism. Key events that fueled tensions. 1. Berlin Blockade, 1948 to 1949. The USSR tried to force the Western Allies out of Berlin by cutting off supplies. 1. The US responded with the Berlin Airlift. 2. NATO versus Warsaw Pact, 1949 and 1955. The US formed NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, with Western European allies, while the USSR responded with the Warsaw Pact, forming two rival military alliances. 3. The nuclear arms race and space race, 1950s-1960s. Both nations began stockpiling nuclear weapons, leading to the fear of mutual destruction. This led to proxy wars and intense competition, such as 1. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953. The US supported South Korea, while the USSR backed North Korea. 2. The space race. The USSR launched Sputnik, 1957, the first satellite, while the US responded by landing on the moon in 1969. 4. The Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. One of the tensest moments came in 1962 when the US discovered Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. This nearly led to nuclear war, but after negotiations, the USSR agreed to remove the missiles in exchange for the US removing its missiles from Turkey. 5. Proxy wars and global influence battles, 1960s-1980s. Both nations fought indirectly by supporting opposite sides in conflicts worldwide. 1. Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. The USSR backed North Vietnam, while the US supported South Vietnam. 2. Afghanistan War, 1979 to 1989. The Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and the US secretly funded Afghan fighters, Mujahideen, leading to heavy Soviet losses. 6. The fall of the Soviet Union and end of the Cold War, 1991. Economic struggles, political unrest, and reforms by Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev led to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. This marked the end of the Cold War, and Russia became a separate nation. 7. Post-Cold War relations and modern tensions. Even after the Cold War, tensions remained due to 1. NATO expansion. The US expanded NATO closer to Russia's borders. 2. Conflicts in Ukraine and Crimea. The US opposes Russia's annexation of Crimea, 2014. 3. Cyber warfare and election meddling. Accusations of Russian interference in US politics. Conclusion. The US-Russia rivalry is a mix of historical, ideological, and political conflicts. While they are no longer engaged in a direct Cold War, their relationship remains strained due to ongoing geopolitical tensions. Would you like more details on any specific period?